In the theme of food microbiology and public health, we are firstly going to look at the potential hazards that can be present in food products, and this can be chemical hazards, which will be the chemicals that are associated with the food product, so they can be the property of the food product itself. It could also be those chemicals that are introduced into the food product, and we are going to focus more on biological hazards, which are the microorganisms, especially the pathogenic or the disease-causing microorganisms that can be present in food products. Since we are focusing on foodborne illnesses that are associated or caused by microorganisms, we are furthermore going to look into the incidence of occurrence of foodborne illnesses, as well as the consequences of such illnesses. As much as food is supposed to be nutritious, at the same time as it is providing these nutritious products to consumers, it can at the same time be the medium through which the consumers are exposed to different types of hazards. And this could be biological hazards, which could be the microorganisms and the toxins that they produce. It could be the chemical hazards, which can be the plant toxins. It could be chemicals such as the pesticides and the herbicides that are used in agriculture. There could be also nutritional inadequacies in cases where a food product contains too much of a certain nutrient, or a food product is deficient in terms of a specific nutritional compound. It could be a mineral or a vitamin. And other products also causes allergic reactions in certain individuals, and the well-known example of an allergen is peanuts. So we are going to look at all these hazards that can be present in food products. Before we focus on the biological hazards that can be present in food, which are the microorganisms, we just need to highlight the presence of other hazards in the food products. And then if you look at the food products, as much as we're expecting that the food products are supposed to give us nutritional benefits, you find that some food products have some insufficiencies in terms of the nutritious products or compounds that they are supposed to provide to the consumers. And in those cases of insufficiencies, individuals can suffer from diseases such as marasmus, where there is lack of proteins, for example, or as well as suffer from what is known as kwashiorkor. Other examples where the lack of specific nutrients or minerals within products can lead to diseases is in cases where individuals can suffer from goiter, beriberi, and scurvy, and these are all as a result of the deficiency of the food in terms of a certain or a specific mineral. We also have, on the other hand, instances whereby food products themselves intrinsically contain some compounds that are present at levels that are toxic to the consumers. The two examples include the presence of solanine in the potatoes, which is mostly concentrated in the potato peel or in the sprouted potatoes. Now, solanine, if it's present, it results in solanine poisoning in consumers, which has symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, itchiness. It can cause headaches, nightmares, hallucination, fever, as well as other symptoms in different individuals. Another example is the presence of anti-nutritional properties within food products such as your legumes, which we know most of the time people will say they don't like nuts, they don't like beans due to the gas associated with eating those. So these are some of those anti-nutritional properties that are there within the food product. Fortunately enough, in those cases, this phytate, which has got anti-nutritional properties, can be destroyed by proper processing of the food products. So in this cases of beans, where you soak them and discard the water and then you sufficiently cook them. So those components that originally were there in the levels that are not good for some of the consumers, they can be reduced to levels where the consumers will not have to deal with those effects. So this indicates that food products can expose us to hazards, and this could be the unavoidable, as they can be the properties of the food product itself. But it is very important that we need to keep a sense of proportion. So we shouldn't be scared that there's presence of or potential presence of these particular kinds of hazard in food products and then decide to abstain from food products. What we need to keep in mind is the proper preparation of the food products, such that we end up getting the nutritional effects or benefits that we expect from the different food products. Having mentioned the other types of hazards that could be present in food products, we now focus on foodborne diseases which occur as a result of the presence of biological hazards in food products. And here specifically we are focusing on those diseases that result due to the presence of microorganisms. Now, foodborne disease is defined as any disease of an infectious or toxic nature caused by or thought to be caused by the consumption of food or water. So that is a definition that is specified by the World Health Organization. Let's now look at the significance of foodborne diseases. Microorganisms are the most important cause of foodborne diseases, which means the risk of consumers getting ill due to microbial contamination of food is higher than, for example, the illnesses that could be caused by exposure to the presence of pesticides or of the other hazards that we have mentioned. Foodborne diseases are different. There can be those cases in which the disease is mild and self-limiting, and in those cases, in an average healthy individuals, the foodborne disease will become cleared, or the individual can be healed without seeking any medical attention. However, they can also be severe, that is, have serious consequences, and this is even worse in certain susceptible groups such as the elderly, the infants, and immunocompromised individuals. And the common factor in all these individuals is the fact that their immune systems are weak, and that is, are not fit enough to protect them from the infectious agents. Most infections can cause the gastrointestinal tract restricted conditions such as the diarrhea, vomiting, and so forth. But the infections not only result with those diseases that are confined to the gastrointestinal tract. You have other pathogens that can cause severe complications, which cause symptoms away from the gastrointestinal tract, and the typical examples are like the neurological diseases such as the botulism, which comes from the presence of the Clostridium botulinum toxin. In other cases, Campylobacter can result in another neurological disease called Guillain syndrome. And you also have other pathogens such as Listeria that can result in abortions, stillbirth, and so forth. So, the economic costs of foodborne illnesses impact both the public sector, they can also impact individuals, and they can have an impact on the food industry. So in terms of the public sector, the cost results due to diversion of resources to treatment of patients. So in certain cases, when people start getting sick due to these foodborne illnesses, at the extent that they go and seek medical attention, and they go to the hospitals, obviously then they have to give them medication to deal with the infections, and in severe cases the other costs are implicated, whereby then they need to investigate the sources of infections. To the individuals that are infected, there could be a loss of income. There is also additional cost of medication and treatment. And also, when people are suffering from these diseases, in most cases, they are not able to go to work, and this will have a negative impact on the national economy because absenteeism will result in low productivity. Several attempts to quantify or estimate the cost due to investigation of cases of foodborne illnesses, as well as the cost for their treatment and the cost to the individuals as well as to the loss of production, have indicated, for example, as indicated in the table, that in the United Kingdom they were estimated to be close to £1 million. And these are the statistics or the costs that were given due to the cases of salmonella around 1988, 1989. So if you think how long ago those were, and you start thinking how much £1 million is, if we are going to do the currency comparison in South Africa, it indicates already that the cost associated with these foodborne illnesses is very significant. The cost of the food industry is also very high, and in certain cases, the particular food industry involved can be also bankrupt. This affects both the company that produces a product or a food product which has been implicated in the outbreak, and also can affect those companies that have or are producing or selling a similar product. Obviously, as soon as consumers realize that a certain product has resulted in diseases, they will be scared and assume that all the products from the different manufacturers will also have the same problem, and therefore they will stop, or the numbers of individuals who are going to buy that particular food product will also decline, and that results in the loss to the industry itself. So the loss to the food industry can be summarized as follows. In cases where a particular food product produced by a certain company is implicated in foodborne illnesses, then in order to avoid future implications, the set or the company in question will try to take precautionary measures to ensure that the process failures that initially resulted in outbreaks do not occur again. Secondly, food retailers will experience a decline in sales as consumers will stop buying food implicated in disease outbreaks. Consequences of foodborne illness are more severe in developing than in developed countries. In developing countries, diarrhea, which is caused by foodborne illnesses, results in most cases of morbidity and mortality, and this is especially in children who are less than 5 years of age. Repeated cases of diarrhea or relapses in diarrhea result in stunted growth in children, whereby those children that have suffered from diarrhea several times will grow much slower than those children who did not suffer from diarrhea. So this repeated diarrhea also results in malnutrition, which furthermore predisposes individuals to severe cases of diarrhea and other infections. This has negative impacts on the health of children, as already indicated. It can impair their mental development, physical development, and can also result in premature death. This is a case where the life expectancy of the children becomes even shorter, so they don't grow old enough due to these diseases. So they die at a very early age. The most dangerous period that predisposes children to diseases is weaning period. So this is the period when the children are introduced to solid foods. So when people either are going to stop breastfeeding, or they are also going to breastfeed but also give their children other types of food products. So in this period of weaning, when the children are introduced to solid foods, they result in dilution of the anti-effective properties of breast milk. So naturally, breast milk is good because it contains those bifidogenic factors which have beneficial effects on the child. So when the solid foods are introduced, less of the milk or the breast milk is going to be consumed by the children, and therefore those beneficial effects will become less, and therefore they will be susceptible to more infections. Another problem is that some of the foods that are introduced will have low nutrient value. And on top of this fact, it is known that immune systems of children are not fully developed. So this weaning period exposes them to new sources of infection. And what makes the situation worse is the fact that in most cases, poor hygienic practices are used in preparing those foods that are fed to the children. And also in certain cases, there is use of contaminated water. And all those increases the risk that the children are exposed to, and therefore can result in more disease in these children. In order to try to give a clear picture of the incidences of foodborne illnesses, different countries try to record and publish the statistics that are obtained from or for foodborne illnesses. On the slide, just in summary, is the incidences that were estimated in the United States, which indicate that foodborne illnesses results in about 76 million cases, and of those cases there were about 323,000 hospitalizations. And to show that this happens where and that more and that it is very significant, it also resulted in above 5,000 fatality cases. Now, this is just an example of the statistics that were published for the United States in a given year. These statistics or the incidences of foodborne illnesses are not the same in all the countries. And in most cases, what has been observed is that the statistics that cover incidences of foodborne illnesses are reliable due to a number of reasons. Firstly, some countries don't have a system for collecting data of illnesses, so there is no records that indicate the incidences of foodborne illnesses. Secondly, in some countries that have a reporting system, only a fraction of the actual cases is reported, and in many cases, those are the ones in which individuals went to seek medical attention, so they went to hospitals. Thirdly, there are discrepancies as different countries will use different systems for notifications and reporting. So due to the use of the different systems to record or report these incidences of foodborne illnesses, they will also differ from one place to another. For example, some countries report cases of foodborne illness without specifying the causative agent. So they will say there are so many cases of illnesses that resulted due to consumption of contaminated food, but they fail to indicate which organism was the one responsible for the disease. Others will report only those laboratory confirmed cases. So in those cases where the samples were taken and the causative agent was isolated from the sample taken. Or you have others which report all cases of gastrointestinal infection as foodborne illness, even where involvement of a particular food product has not been established. So just basically relying on the fact that there is some gastrointestinal symptom, then they assume that it is as a result of foodborne illness. And furthermore, you also have other countries that will only record cases of salmonellosis. And we know that salmonella is not the only organism that can cause foodborne illnesses. So that also will indicate the difference from that country, whereby other illnesses that are resulting as a exposure to the pathogens are not recorded. Another factor contributing to the discrepancies in differences is the differences in the food consumption patterns. So different countries will consume different or eat different food products, and then they will have less preference for other food products. So in those cases, or due to this differences in the food consumption patterns, you may find that in certain countries they consume the food that have the higher risk of carrying the foodborne diseases, and they are consuming less of those ones that have lower levels of the disease, and the opposite can apply in another country. So if you think about it, that is also going to result in either higher or lower levels of incidences of foodborne illnesses, depending on which food products are consumed more. The other important thing is that sporadic cases or isolated cases of foodborne illnesses, so those ones that are affecting individuals, are not given equal attention to the same ones where, as in cases where outbreaks occur. So if it is an outbreak which is saying a lot of people are involved, only then will those cases get attention, and the people will need to find out what happened and its incidences, where now they can now capture the number of cases and how many people were involved, and they can even try to track the source of the particular contaminant which was present in a food product. So as we have already mentioned, the statistics of foodborne illnesses that are published are made up of notifications from medical practitioners. So in those cases where people went to hospital or to doctors to seek medical attention, and also they are made up of those ones that are coming from or recorded from outbreaks. And these are usually incomplete. Why they are incomplete? If it is only from outbreaks, then the isolated cases or sporadic cases are not taken into consideration. And if it is only for those that went to seek medical attention, then those ones that suffered from the gastrointestinal, the foodborne illnesses, but were able to clear off the infection without seeking attention, also those ones will not form part of the statistic. Now, another thing is that even among those ones who went to seek medical attention from the medical practitioners, usually diagnosis is made purely on symptoms of the disease. So the doctors will normally, just based on the symptoms that you tell them, they will say this is a foodborne disease, even though there is no microbiological investigation to find the food that has been implicated or to establish which pathogen resulted in the symptoms that are seen in the patient. And furthermore, only individuals that are severely affected will seek medical attention. It makes sense. People sometimes they will just sit and wait, and then the infection, if they are lucky, clears, and that will go without being recorded. So that leads to the statistics being incomplete. The statistics published, therefore, can be presented in a pyramid, which indicates that the reported cases, which are at the tip or the apex, is a very small proportion of the actual number of instances, which is indicated at the bottom of the pyramid. So the bottom indicates all the cases, from sporadic cases, from outbreaks, from those people who went to seek medical help, as well as those ones that did not, and it also includes those cases where the link has been made between the foodborne disease and the symptoms and so forth, while the tip indicates only those laboratory confirmed cases, and also is those ones in which cases there was a positive isolation of the pathogen. Lastly, in certain cases or places, higher numbers of foodborne illnesses are recorded. This could be due to improved reporting and data collection procedures, or it could reflect the use of better methods for isolation of the pathogen and so forth. But more importantly, the increase in the number of highborne illnesses recorded could also be a true reflection of the actual increase in the number of cases of foodborne illnesses. In summary, the observation made is that the reported cases of foodborne illnesses are an underestimation of the actual cases. Considering how alarming some of the statistics are, however, despite them being incomplete, they give a very clear picture about the real problem posed by foodborne illnesses, and thus highlight the importance of keeping microorganisms that can cause diseases in check. So it highlights why it is important that we have to ensure that food products are not contaminated by microorganisms that can cause disease in consumers. As it has already been indicated, the foodborne outbreaks have been given sufficient attention, and a lot of investigations has been done. And what has been observed from such investigations is that in most cases, the foods that are incriminated in foodborne outbreaks are mostly of animal origin, so the meat, poultry, milk, eggs, and egg products. And at the same time, they have also observed that fish are less commonly implicated. So the relative importance of these products differ from country to country, as it is influenced by consumption patterns. I've already indicated that. What do we mean by that? In as much as what has been observed is that most of the time it is food products of animal origin that results in more cases of foodborne illnesses. The picture can change where in countries where there is consumption of seafood, for example. So in those cases, there will be more incidences due to those diseases that have been as a result of consumption of the fish or shellfish that harbored the foodborne pathogens. Now, another thing that has been observed is that the outbreaks occur due to distribution of a contaminated food product, or from situations where meals are prepared for a large number of people. So that is mass catering, and that could be at restaurants, at hotels, canteens, hospitals, as special events such as weddings. And the reasons that mass catering results in most of the outbreaks of foodborne illnesses is due to inadequate management, lack of staff training, as well as inadequate facilities that are used in preparation of the food products. The failures in food hygiene that contribute to outbreaks of foodborne illnesses are summarized in Table 6.5. And just to highlight some of them, these include preparation of food well in advance, storage of food at temperatures that allow growth of microorganisms, so the storage of food products at ambient temperatures, inadequate cooling of the food products, undercooking of food products, inadequate thawing of food, consumption of raw foods such as your salads, improper warm handling of the food products, and infected food handlers. So the people who are handling the food themselves can also lead to contamination of the food products, which will eventually result in diseases. So there's more factors that are highlighted. What is common from all these factors, or what is revealed, is the fact that there's two main factors that contribute to outbreaks, and the two main factors are temperature and time. This is due to failure to cool foods and hold them at temperatures which will not allow growth of microorganisms in the food product. Secondly, due to failure to heat food products sufficiently high at high temperatures that will kill the microorganisms that are present within food products. You can think about, most of the time, if you have your leftovers that you want to eat for lunch the next day, many times people don't heat them up sufficiently. They just make them warm enough, and that in terms of the risk due to the presence of the microorganisms, it could only be enhancing or putting the food products at the temperature that will allow growth of the microorganisms to dangerous levels. So that could allow the microorganism to multiply such that it reach the infective dose of a given pathogen. So those are the two factors, the temperature and time. The temperature not sufficient to hold or stop growth of the microorganisms or to kill them, and as well as leaving them for a prolonged time that allows growth of microorganisms to levels that are sufficient to cause an infection. Another fact that makes foodborne diseases a huge challenge is the fact that it is a dynamic kind of situation, so it keeps evolving. What we mean by that, the pathogens that are of concern keep changing due to changes in the food industry itself. It could be due to changes in a number of things. It could be formulations, it could be storage conditions, and so forth. And in certain cases, you find that the pathogens that were not of concern in certain places previously suddenly becomes more important. So there are more consumers that are now exposed to those pathogens, and then there are recorded incidences of foodborne illnesses. And this is where there is emergence of what is called emerging foodborne pathogens. Now, emerging foodborne pathogens can be entirely new species, but it's not always new species. It could also be those pathogens that appear and are recognized in a given population for the first time. So previously, they were never recorded to cause diseases in a certain population. Then due to certain chances, they are starting to be recognized. And that makes them an emerging pathogen, which means now there has to be measures put in place to make sure that they can be controlled. Also, it could also be the organisms whose incidences are increasing rapidly. So there are more cases of those pathogens than were previously recorded. Or it could also be those pathogens have spread to new geographical areas. So you may find that that particular pathogen was previously not recorded in another place, but over time, due to it could be a number of factors, that particular pathogen has now spread to affect individuals in those areas that were originally, we could say, they were safe. What factors contribute to this changing or evolving pattern of foodborne diseases? The first one is microbial evolution. We know that microorganisms evolve, due to the mutations that they can have in their genomes. And in those cases that those mutations affect their virulence or pathogenicity genes, it could result in more severe or more potent pathogens, and that can become a bigger problem where it can be difficult to control those pathogens. And this microbial evolution can occur naturally just due to the occurrence of mutations over time, or they can also be enhanced by humans whereby they put certain selective pressures that allow new strains to thrive in the food products. Another factor is international trade in foods as well as increased international movement of people. In terms of increased international trade of foods, for example, we have already highlighted that different countries will have different regulations. And if, for example, food products are imported from a country that does not have very stringent regulatory measures, you may find that the food product that contains the pathogens is introduced to that country that is now importing that particular food product. And we know that the world has now become like a village where the food products are imported and exported between countries, and those can result in high incidences of emerging pathogens where they can, for example, the new pathogens be introduced to a new geographical area. That's an example that we've just mentioned before. What goes hand in hand again with that is the increased international movement of people. Now, this could be people who move from one country to the other based on, for example, it could be the refugees of war, it could be due to just seeking greener pastures in the other countries based on the economic differences, and it could be just people who are going there just on holiday. So those people also can introduce the new pathogens to the areas that they visit. Another factor is the changes in farming practices. We know that the population of humans is increasing, and that gives or pressure in terms of the amount of food that has to be produced. So in order to have sufficient food for the increasing population, farming practices have been intensified such that on very small pieces of land, people try to grow a lot of crops, or if it's livestock, they have too many animals, whereby overcrowding can result in those conditions that are conducive for contamination or cross-contamination of the products that are going to be produced from that kind of agricultural production. There is also a changing character of population. Now, that initially could be as a result of the fact that there is more improvement in terms of nutrition and healthcare. So if there is more nutritional products and there's improved medication which is given to people who are immunocompromised, for example, or to the elderly, those particular individuals will live longer because they have nutrients and they also have medication for treatment. But at the same time, the elderly and the immunocompromised people, as we have already mentioned, they are more susceptible to infections. And so when they are present in the populations for longer periods of time, and they are more at the risk of being exposed to the pathogens and suffering from those diseases, of course they will get the treatment, but if they are recorded every time that they suffer a particular disease, that will also eventually lead to incidences or high incidences or cases of the particular foodborne illness that they suffer from. There is also lastly lifestyle changes, where more people are working, more people are becoming wealthy, and also more people move to the urban areas. And in those cases, people now also prefer convenience food, and they also, because they have money, they like trying unusual food products. So when they are trying these food products that they are not used to, that can result in their exposure to those pathogens that are prevalent in those food products, and they can result in cases of foodborne illnesses. And also in terms of people preferring to get ready to eat meals or buying food from restaurants, as we have already indicated, those are the places which have been implicated in most of the foodborne outbreaks due to the reasons that we have given, as such as the inadequate maintenance, inadequate staff training, preparation of food well in advance. All those cases can result in more cases of foodborne illnesses. And all this highlight that we cannot at a certain point say we are in control and we know how to deal with the food products, as the changes in the practices will always result in new challenges in terms of the types of foodborne pathogens that affect the individuals. So that highlights that we always have to continuously be alert, and in terms of keep a record of the kind of changes that are introduced, and make sure that when these changes happen, we look at how they impact the cases of foodborne illnesses, such that it will become relatively easy to try to come up with control measures to minimize the infections that are caused by these emerging pathogens.